In 1934, UC Berkeley researchers watched 80% of a termite colony die after contact with a simple boric acid solution. By 1952, the USDA confirmed it in print. The science was settled before most American homes were even built. Today, homeowners pay $300 to $500 a year on recurring contracts, feeding a multi-billion-dollar industry, while a $2 foundation treatment sat buried in public record for over 70 years. The question was never whether it works. In a quiet UC Berkeley laboratory in 1934, Charles Kofoid and O.L. Williams carried out a simple experiment that would echo through the decades. They dusted pine blocks with boric acid and set loose colonies of subterranean termites. Over the next few weeks, the results were unmistakable. More than 80% of the termites died, and the survivors abandoned the treated wood. The lab notes describe not just mortality, but a collapse in feeding and colony activity, a finding that challenged the era's prevailing wisdom about what it took to stop termites. No exotic chemicals, no secret formulas, just a mineral powder, cheap enough to treat a home's foundation for less than $2. Nearly 20 years later, scientists at the USDA Forest Products Laboratory put the claim to the test again. Their 1952 report documented the effects of boric acid solutions at different concentrations. At 5%, they recorded only 5% survival after exposure, numbers that left little doubt about the chemical's power. The researchers noted that even after repeated wetting and drying, the treated wood remained resistant. The boric acid didn't break down or lose its punch. It stayed in the cell walls, ready to poison any termite that tried to feed. These early studies established a scientific foundation that has held up for generations. The evidence was clear, the cost was negligible, and the treatment didn't expire. Yet, as the years passed, this knowledge remained largely in academic journals and government files, rarely reaching the people who needed it most. The groundwork was laid, but the story of boric acid's disappearance from standard practice was just beginning. Termites remain an invisible threat for millions of American homeowners. Every year, these insects inflict an estimated $6.8 billion in property damage, and about 600,000 homes are affected nationwide. Yet, only a fraction of owners recognize the warning signs before the damage is done. The financial impact is not abstract. It lands directly in the household budget. Most families who discover termites face a choice: pay thousands for repairs or sign up for a recurring service contract. The modern termite control industry has grown into a multi-billion-dollar operation. In 2024, the structural pest segment alone generated over $12.6 billion in service revenue, with termite-specific work accounting for over $2.5 billion. Companies market annual bonds or warranties with renewal fees that typically range from $300 to $500 per year. In high-risk regions, initial setup and comprehensive treatment can push the cost even higher. These agreements promise routine inspections, bait maintenance, and ongoing protection, but they also lock homeowners into a cycle of yearly payments, often for decades. The scale of the industry is matched by its reach. More than 30,000 pest control firms compete for contracts, shaping a service model that prioritizes repeat business. For homeowners, the stakes are clear. Miss a single renewal, and the warranty vanishes, leaving the full risk of infestation and repair on their shoulders. The economics of termite control are built on the expectation that prevention is never a one-time fix, but a permanent line item in the family ledger. In the controlled chaos of a termite colony, boric acid acts with surgical precision. Modern laboratory trials led by scientists like Bradford Card have mapped every step of the process. When a 2% boric acid solution is mixed into soil or applied to wood, the numbers are unambiguous. In repeated USDA and Hawaiian lab studies, termite survival plummeted to zero within 15 days. Treated wood suffered less than 5% weight loss, while untreated samples were devoured. No other registered termiticide matches this kind of mortality curve at such low concentrations. But the real story lies in how the poison moves. Termites do not simply die on contact. The boric acid crystals cling to their bodies as they tunnel through treated soil or wood. Back in the nest, the insects begin their compulsive grooming ritual, scraping every particle from their own bodies and from their nestmates. Each mouthful delivers a dose of boric acid straight to the gut, where it quietly destroys the microbial engine that lets termites digest cellulose. Feeding slows, then stops. The colony's social structure turns against itself. Dying workers are cannibalized by the living, who ingest even more of the toxin. Through grooming, feeding, and cannibalization, the poison spreads like a silent chain reaction, reaching the queen and soldiers hidden deep in the colony. No evidence has ever surfaced of termites developing resistance to boric acid. Decades of testing across multiple continents and species have produced the same outcome: collapse. For a substance that costs pennies per treatment, boric acid's biological pathway is relentless, a slow-motion implosion that leaves no survivors provided the dose is right and the colony cannot escape. Japanese builders have relied on borax treatments for decades, embedding them into the construction process as a standard defense against termites. In post-war Japan, pressure-treated timbers with boric acid became the backbone of residential durability, credited with keeping termite damage rates among the lowest in the developed world. The approach was straightforward. Wood components were soaked or brushed with a borate solution, then allowed to dry before assembly. Over time, this simple step proved so effective that entire neighborhoods remained free from infestation for generations. Across the Pacific, Australian engineers faced some of the most aggressive termite species on Earth. Field trials in Queensland and New South Wales during the 1980s and the 1990s tracked homes built with borate-treated framing. The data spoke for itself. Structures treated at as little as 1% active ingredient saw a greater than 95% reduction in termite-related repairs over a 10-year span. These results were published in government bulletins and adopted into regional building guidelines, reinforcing borates as a practical, affordable solution for large-scale construction. Recognition of borate efficacy is not limited to local codes. In 2021, the International Building Code officially listed borate wood preservatives as an approved alternative to soil-applied termiticides. This inclusion, drafted by the IBC committee after reviewing decades of field and laboratory data, gave borate treatments the same regulatory standing as more expensive chemical barriers. Today, the code language is clear. Borate treated structural lumber meets the requirements for termite resistance in both residential and commercial construction. The global record is consistent. Where borates are used, termite damage drops, and the need for costly repeat treatments all but disappears. Revenue from termite contracts flows in steady streams, year after year, homeowner after homeowner. The business model depends on recurring service, not permanent prevention. Annual contract fees of $300 to $500 are written into the fine print, and the promise of protection is always contingent. Skip a single payment, and the warranty disappears. At the heart of this system stands a legal and regulatory structure that keeps the money moving. The Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, FIFRA, set the rules in 1947, then raised the bar further with a 1972 amendment. That change required any termite control product to meet new registration standards, including proof of unique benefit. Boric acid, despite decades of lab and field validation, became boxed in by these requirements. EPA documents classified it as a Group E compound, non-carcinogenic to humans, but the wording on many state licensing cards reserved termite treatments for professionals only. Boric acid's low cost and non-expiring action posed a direct threat to the cycle of contracts and renewals. Instead of a $2 foundation treatment, homeowners faced a wall of professional-only rules, contract obligations, and regulatory hurdles. Science was clear, but the path to public use was blocked by a system designed to favor high-margin, recurring services over simple, lasting prevention. A $2 solution, measured, mixed, and poured, has the power to turn any homeowner into their own best line of defense. The recipe is simple. Dissolve boric acid powder into water at a concentration between 0.5% and 1% by weight. For most homes, that means a single pound of boric acid, costing less than $2, is enough to treat the entire perimeter, foundation, or all exposed framing during construction. Once applied to wood or soil, the solution seeps in and dries, leaving behind a crystalline shield that does not break down in normal weather cycles. Scientific trials confirm that this barrier remains effective for a decade or more, with over 90% protection against termite attack, even after repeated wetting and drying. Unlike commercial treatments that require annual renewal and costly inspections, this method is a one-time act. No contract, no recurring fee. The evidence is not locked away in trade manuals or behind a paywall. It is published, peer-reviewed, and accessible to anyone willing to follow directions. In a system built on perpetual payments and professional gatekeeping, the real act of resistance is knowledge. For the price of a cup of coffee, the power to protect a home passes back to the people who live in it. Today, millions pay for annual termite contracts, while a peer-reviewed $2 mineral still outperforms synthetic baits, without resistance ever documented. The science is public. The barriers are not technical, but economic. Access to proven prevention remains a choice, one shaped by who profits from what you don't know. Share your thoughts below.